Ladies and gentlemen, outside the squared circle, back at it here for 2018. It's been a while, so we have a lot to talk about. We're starting off with the most recent fight. Before I do that, of course, my name is Frank. That's Dennis here with me. We're partners. I gotta refresh everyone's memory going, doing everything here. But let's just start off, like I said, with that Lamont Peterson, Errol Spence fight. And in all reality, Dennis, and you can carry it from here, but, the fight played out pretty much how everyone expected it to, right? Lamont, did his thing. He came to fight. He's a grizzled veteran, but at the end, he was just outgunned. I mean, is there any other way to slice that up?
Absolutely not. What happened is, you're looking at a guy like Lamont Peterson, who's a veteran, who's been in there with almost everybody. He knows his way around the ring. He's the type of guy, he's seen every style.
Yeah.
And he was gearing in his mind, he didn't want to be stopped. If it wasn't for his corner, he would have continued to go. You gotta love the heart of a guy like that. I understand with his corner, they stopped it because you gotta look at Lamont Peterson. He's older now, and you don't want him taking too much punishment in these years like this because that can't be good.
No.
I mean, the fight, he wasn't going to win the fight. He doesn't have the power to stop Spence, so I give his corner's decision to say, hey, what can you do here? But to Lamont's credit, I love the fact that he would not give up himself. He would not say, okay, I want to quit myself. A lot of these people, we've been seeing this lately. It's been a thing. A lot of guys are like, yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Lamont is not that type of guy.
No.
I respect him to that. He wanted to go out on the shield because he was actually, this is the thing, he was landing some really nice shots on Spence. If he just had more power, that fight could have really been interesting, So,
yeah. And to kind of,
that's something I wanted to key on.
Yeah, and really to further that point, man, that just shows you two things out of Errol Spence as well. And I did kind of want to address, the corner stopping it. But before I do that, it shows you, one, obviously Errol Spence has a pretty damn good chin because Lamont, while he's not the guy that's going to get you out of there with one shot, he could punch, right? He has very respectable punching power. But two, Errol Spence, the thing that sets him apart, man, that makes him special, is his ability to control distance. I don't know if I noticed that immediately, and this is something that I've always noticed. But as he continues to fight better and better competition, it becomes even more apparent because there were times where Peterson would land on him, and he just didn't have enough torque on his shot to hurt Errol because Errol was in such a good position that he couldn't do nothing but, get only so much on that shot. And I mean, that's something Errol does beautifully. And really, to touch on what you were talking about with the corner stopping the fight, the thing that I was seeing a few people asking, did he quit? Was this a quit job on Peterson's part? Let's just say, even if Peterson told the corner, you know what, I've had enough, that's not quitting. It's not. It came to a point where, in all respect due, I don't usually like using these type of terms when it comes to professional prize fighters, but he was getting his ass whooped after a little bit. Round 5, round 6 is turning around. He's starting to get his ass kicked. And even if he were the one to make that call and say, you know what, I've had enough, that's not quitting. The most recent example of someone quitting was Rigondeaux versus Lomachenko. He wasn't hurt in that fight.
Right.
He was just frustrated, and he knew he couldn't do anything. He couldn't even go out on the shield. Because you look at the Lamont Peterson fight, the round before the corner stopped it, he even told him, like, look, give me one more. I want to give it all I got here. The corner said, look, if I don't see shit, I'm stopping it. And sure enough, that's what happened. And granted, Lamont didn't say I had enough, but I'm saying even if he did, that's a type of fight that's not quitting if a fighter's like, hey, look, he got me. There's nothing I can do. There's no point in continuing to take damage, and that's why I was glad the trainer was able to see that as well. He protected Lamont from his own good. We need more of that in boxing. You know what I mean? And that was one thing that I did really want to applaud Lamont Peterson's trainer for that. I did want to ask, though, and really, let's start with Peterson, because obviously there's a lot of avenues that Spence can take. What do we want next out of Peterson? Is retirement the next logical step for him?
I'm sorry, my screen is tripping.
No, you're good. You're good. You can even just keep talking. I still have the audio.
I have to get everything set up nice and right. We have a great show for you guys. But yeah, I mean, what's next for Peterson? Look, listen. Honestly,
I agree.
If he wants to do that. If it's not, because the older you get, the harder it gets to lose weight and stuff, you know what I mean? If he could drop back down, I think he should go chase the title at 140. If not, I would see him take one last fight. This is my done fight and go home. And I think a good fight against like him versus Berto, both of them are the same path. Both of them, they fought everybody. They've gotten paid. So they both on their way out the door. If they want to take a last fight against each other at 147 and call it a day, I wouldn't be mad at that.
Hey, you know what you actually just made me think of too? You know what would be a good fight, and I think it would make sense from a financial standpoint and from a standpoint to further one fighter while the other fighter can kind of take it and retire. Him and Khan rematch. Even if it was at like a catchweight of 150, because neither guy has a weight advantage. Khan's on his comeback. I think that would be a good logical next fight for Khan. If Peterson can recover. I think Khan's coming back in May or April. I don't know if he'll have time enough to recover, but maybe you let Peterson sit out until September or so to fight Khan, and then you're obviously setting something up for Khan next year, in the beginning of next year, probably a Kell Brook fight. But I think that would be a solid fight as well.
Absolutely. I mean, that would make all the sense in the world, especially for Khan, because he want to get that get back. And then it makes sense for Lamont to get one last good payday and get it in and say, hey, I've had a day. You know?
I agree.
So that's my thing. If Lamont doesn't want to go back down to 140 catch a title, I just say take one more last fight. Wish the fans well, and you've done everything that you need to do. You won titles, you made money, and you're well respected.
I agree. So then on to Spence, and then we can move on to some other topics here. Obviously, the fight we want is versus Keith Thurman. We know that that's not happening next. We know that Thurman just got a date in May, which is going to be a tune-up. That's actually not going to be Jesse Vargas. We can touch on that either this episode later or some other time, but I did want to focus on Spence, and we also know that Spence is coming back in June, which logically tells me that they're on the path to fight each other at the end of 2018. So in the meantime, what fight makes sense for Errol Spence next in between? Let's just say the fight is being prepped for September through December, in that range. What fight should he take in between then, to get him ready for Thurman?
The most logical fight is the Victor Ortiz versus.
Who is he fighting?
Victor Ortiz is fighting versus Devin Alexander.
Yeah. Oh, that would be.
Fight,
yep.
I mean, that makes the most sense because those guys are trying to come back and they want a title shot. This is what they fighting for. Devin Alexander is fighting Victor Ortiz, and Victor Ortiz is fighting Devin Alexander to legitimize himself that they still are somebody at 147 and they still are elite and they want a title shot. So the winner, here you go. You're gonna have to get it the hard way.
I agree. I didn't even think of that.
It's not an easy road, but if you want to legitimize yourself as a real contender at 147, the winner that should face Errol Spence, I think that just makes the most sense.
I agree. I wasn't even thinking about that fight. Throwing politics aside, the fight that I was gonna say that I think could be very entertaining and a very winnable fight, but also dangerous at the same time that's gonna bring viewers in, would be if Lucas Matisse wins this Saturday. I think that would be a very good fight at 47 for Spence.
That's a very good fight
as well.
I think that you know what? I would love. It's just hard. This is hard because I've seen what happened to Matisse when he fought Victor post-op. When he fought a good boxer,
yeah,
I've seen him fight. You see, I
yeah.
And Spence.
Yeah, he's special.
Incredible with body punching.
Yeah.
Distance, cutting the ring off.
But here's my logic though behind that fight, is because we've seen Errol Spence fight people we know he can get his body shots off on. He has to tread lightly with Lucas Matisse. Say what you will, we've seen him fold, we've seen him lose his bigger fights, but hey, if he catches you upstairs while you're trying to go downstairs, he's putting you to sleep. He can flat out punch. And I would love to see the type of game plan that Errol Spence comes with someone that can hurt him. And we know that, Keith Thurman can hurt damn near everyone, if not everyone, at 147. So that was my logic behind it. But at the same time, let's say Victor Ortiz beats Devin Alexander. He has the power to hurt everyone as well. Say what you will about him. Right. Say what you will about Vic.
It's hard. It's always a question.
Right.
But let's be honest. Victor Ortiz, offensive arsenal cannot be slept on. If you
right.
go to Adams, Victor Ortiz, if you just go like, this is Victor Ortiz, it's probably and you don't, you may have yourself a long night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is your screen acting up?
Yes.
No, it's all good. Honestly, you can keep talking through that because I could still hear you still. I'm still catching the recording, so no worries. You can, but you're right though. You're right. You can't like you said. And it's the same sentiment as Lucas Matisse. Say what you will about Victor Ortiz. He has his flaws, but he's still a dangerous opponent, and that's kind of the guy, the type of guy I want Spence to fight next. Someone that's not necessarily a gimme. Someone he's gonna have to work for, the win, but he's still gonna be favored for it because ultimately I do want to see him fight Thurman. But no, I think we covered that. So just moving on, and this is gonna kind of get random from here on out. The things that we were kind of messaging each other about. So firstly, let's talk about the Adonis Stevenson fight that got finalized. What was that? May 19th.
Finally, look. I've been talking trash about Adonis for a long time.
We both have.
So it's only fair that I say, finally he's fighting somebody, and I respect you, Adonis, for doing it. Finally.
Yeah.
No more carpentries. No more fanfaras.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Finally.
I agree. And this is my early judgment of the fight. And I think you feel a little bit stronger on Adonis' side, and I feel a little bit stronger on the Bado Jack side. We have plenty of time to really make our pick. That my general sentiment is that the only person off the top of my head that I've seen progress just as well, or maybe even a little bit better than Bado Jack over a span of fights, has been Canelo Alvarez. Bado Jack has gone from the guy that might give people trouble to holy shit, this guy might be the best guy at 168, and now that he moved up, he might be the best guy at 175. I mean, he's just so well rounded. He's one of those guys
He doesn't do anything great, but he does everything well.
He's the Matt Forte of boxing. He doesn't do anything necessarily great, but he's so well rounded that he didn't need to be. He does everything very, very well. And my only thing is, if Adonis catches you, especially early, it's probably lights out for anyone at 175. That being said, the longer the fight goes on, I think it's going to be bad news for Adonis because he's not that well-rounded. He's just so accurate with his left hand that he's been able to get away with it against subpar competition, and even against the elites when he beat who did he win his title off of? Bad Chad Dawson. When he beat Chad Dawson, he set that shot up perfect, but when you're continuing.
What already had sung him? Your soul is mine. So I don't.
Yeah, exactly. At that point,
I'm not taking anything away from him. It was a great shot, but Dawson's soul was gone already. He was just a shell.
Yeah.
He hasn't been back and been the same since.
Yeah, I agree. But the point I was making was at that point we still didn't know if he was elite or not. And clearly that fight showed us that Ward clearly took a lot out of him, but you still can't take, just like you said, you can't take anything away from Adonis. Or my early prediction is either a late stoppage for Bado Jack or a fairly close but clear unanimous decision, or just decision, because you never know how a judge may see it, but a decision win for Bado Jack. And that's just early. Things can change as we go. The weigh-in kind of sways me sometimes, but that's how I feel about that right now. But I share the same sentiment as you. I'm just glad that Stevenson is in there against someone that has a legitimate shot to beat him. And honestly, Bado Jack might be favored on the books. for this fight.
I wouldn't be mad if he was favored. Like I said, I wouldn't be mad at it, but we'll get into predictions later.
Yeah.
I'll just say for now, I wouldn't be mad if he was favored.
Yeah. So, kind of moving on, and there's no perfect segue because really, guys, what we wanted to do with this show was just get warmed up back with everything, just really talk boxing again, to be honest, and to be full transparent, be fully transparent with you guys. So one of the things I did want to touch on was two things. Well, first, let's go with Adrian Broner. Figueroa fight is finalized, and this has all the makings for another disappointing Adrian Broner fight. Well, first of all, before I go, is this fight at 140 or 147?
140.
140,
Adrian
okay.
Broner's trying to get another. I think it's for the WBC title, if I'm not mistaken, because I seen right at the bottom it had Broner versus Figueroa, and it had WBC title, and then because I know, but it confuses me because I see Amir Arman, he was fighting somebody that had WBC title, and then I seen I forget the other kid's name. He's fighting I forget who he's fighting. He's fighting somebody at 140, and they had interim title. So I'm confused. Like, who's fighting for WBC? Is it Broner or is it Amir Arman?
That's something. And honestly, that's something that me and you both understand. Granted, I'm very out of the loop as of from November on. I was still watching fights, but when it came to the small details, I really fell out with the holidays going. Really getting heavy with my job. I'm at a commission-based job, so it was the holidays. We had to put extra work in, yada yada. Y'all don't want to hear my sob story here, but so. Even title beside, it's clear he wants to make another run for a title. And this fight, to me, my initial thought was this is the exact fight that Adrian Broner disappoints us in. This is a guy that he's clearly more talented than. This is a guy, look, check off every single box. He has more power than him. He has better footwork than him. He has more speed than him.
He's supposed to beat Omar Figueroa, but I think he's going to make it up. It's gonna be a harder fight than it needs. If that's where you're going.
No, and that's exactly where I'm going. And it's because of one simple thing. We saw it in every close fight that Broner's ever had, going back to the Ponce de Leon fight, back at 135 or 130, I forget where they fought, but at the lower weight classes. We saw it with Adrian Granados. We saw it with Mikey Garcia. We saw it with, I know I'm missing even Emmanuel Taylor gave him fits for the 10 or 11 rounds. And it's all about volume. Adrian Broner does not let his hands go. And it's just one of those things where, he's talented. He's more talented than most of the guys he fights. But he allows them to outwork him. So then it becomes, a fight where a judge has to pick, do I like the flashier shots or do I like the volume? And those fights are always closer, split decisions, 115, 113, because those are so hard to, judge. And with that being said, there are certain rounds where Broner lands a flashy shot and thinks that's enough to do it. Or to win the round, I should say. And I feel like we're going to get another one of those fights. I continuously wait for Broner to prove me wrong. But that was exactly why I picked Mikey Garcia. And, everyone was saying, well, Mikey doesn't throw that many punches. Mikey's not even that type of fighter. Mikey understands that that's all he had to do to win, is let his hands go. He has a high boxing IQ. You don't have to fight a certain way to know how to beat somebody.
Broner got 3 losses. Broner lost
Porter. Porter.
He got 4?
Well, no, I was saying Porter was the other one I missed. So he has Mikey Garcia.
Madonna, Mikey Garcia, and
Porter. Those are his 3.
Every last one of them did the same freaking thing.
Yep.
Out hustle, out work.
Yep.
Everybody knows you want to beat Broner, out hustle him, out work him.
Yeah.
How many times you gonna lose to people? Like he lost that Granados fight. He won it, but he lost it.
I had it a draw, but I very easily. I'm here for that. I had it a draw, but I could 100% get behind him losing that fight.
They do the same. Everybody knows. All fighters Broner is gonna throw a lot of punches and put a lot of pressure and out hustle. That's all you get because he's not gonna throw a lot. He's not gonna shuffle his feet. He's not gonna throw a lot. He's not working. Everybody knows Broner. At some point, you gotta make people earn their money.
Yeah.
You gotta make them come up with a different way to beat you.
Yeah. And the one thing that I've always struggled with is I want to know why he doesn't throw more punches. And I've come down to two conclusions, and I don't know which one they are, but it makes logical sense in my head. It's come down to me that either one, he has poor stamina, so he has to really pick his spots, or two, his transition from offense to defense is very poor, and no one taught him that. And it might even be a mix of both, and we see that.
Maybe just both. Like,
and to be honest with you,
he's tired from throwing so much, and then he does not quite know how to transition.
Right. Because and the thing is, you ask anyone that's fought him. Even we forgot Paulie Malignaggi. He arguably lost that fight as well. A lot of these guys, Granados, Mikey, even though Mikey tagged him a lot more than any of those guys did, he was calculated. He's a different beast. But that's besides the point. The point I was going to make was that these guys tell you how hard it is to hit Broner. So while he's defending against shots and he's making a lot of guys miss, just because you're making people miss, you have to throw something back. You have to make them pay. And the thing that I always revert back to is when Floyd Mayweather fought Victor Ortiz. And one of the things in the build-up was that sit-down they had where they were at the round table with Max Kellerman, and he was like, he's going to miss, and I'm going to make him pay. He's going to make a mistake, and he has to pay. That, as a defensive fighter, has to be your mindset. Your mindset can't be, oh, I'm making everybody miss. It doesn't matter. They're still winning that round if you're not throwing punches back. Because they're still controlling that round.
I get it. You're making a miss. He's not hurting you, but he's winning by doing.
Exactly. He's still controlling the pace of that fight. Just because he's not landing very much doesn't mean anything if you're not throwing back and making him pay. And what I was going to say was, and I've been talking too long, so I want you to take it after this, that's what frustrates me about Broner. It's because even in his losses, even in his close fights, you can single out rounds at a time where you're like, if Broner can consistently fight like this is one of the best fighters on the planet. And I want to say it was in the Marcos Maidana fight, it was like round 7 or 8 where he was letting his hands go, throwing combinations, and it was fucking beautiful. And it was like, dude, you don't have to do this all 12 rounds, but god damn it.
Why don't he fight like that all the time? I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And I'll always tune into a Broner fight because he's never been in a boring fight. Say what you will about him, he just hasn't.
No, he's not boring. It's frustrating because it's like the kid has a machine gun and he just refuses to let go many rounds. It's like,
yeah, that's a great analogy.
Kid, you don't have a 9mm. Shoot it.
Yeah, that is a great analogy. I do like that. Now, I feel like we did a good job here touching on Broner. The other thing that I did want to talk about here, what was it? You had messaged it to me. I wanted to touch on Broner before we talked about that. Oh, so the Leo Santa Cruz fight. I want to hear what you think first to see. I've been voicing my opinions on Santa Cruz versus Mares 2 on a few forums that I'm on and just talking to other people about it. So I know how I feel. I want to know how you feel to see if we have the same exact sentiment. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Which fight?
The Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares Part 2.
I think it's going to be a better fight, but it's going to end up with Leo Santa Cruz winning. I mean, I could go long-winded about this, but I think Abner is going to come, and I think he's going to try to get Leo out of there. Because I don't think he can outbox Leo's long reach,
right.
High active pace. Because that's what he is. He's just about activity. And he has a long reach, and he's jabbing it. I think Abner's like, you know what? I can't beat him at this game. I'm going to come there. He's going to try to put Leo out. Yeah. And I think he's going to make for some good action. But I don't know if he will get the job done. So I'm just going to lean towards Leo again because I feel this thing. Leo seems to get better in every fight he has.
He does.
Like remember when he fought the Jackal? He got better after that. Mm-hmm. He learns and adapts. He gets better. So that's what I'm saying. So if Abner can't really get him out of there, he's gonna lose. Because Leo just keeps getting better.
I agree. And I actually agree with you. That wasn't the sentiment that I shared though. I mean, I'm just taking this from a different perspective. I agree with your sentiment that it's going to be exciting. The first fight was pretty entertaining. But I am not for pointless rematches. I just don't see a point in this fight, to be blunt. And it's because
that's no other. That's nothing. No fans called for it. Nobody said, "Hey, guess what we need?
And
Leo versus Abner too."
Right, and the reason for that was because Leo Santa Cruz clearly and comprehensively beat Abner Mares the first time around. I had the fight off the top of my head. It was either 8-4 or 9-3. It wasn't close. And Abner, and like, just like you said, he's gonna do it again. But Abner came to try to make this a brawl, and Leo Santa Cruz didn't allow him to do that. I remember, and this is off the top of my head, I would have to rewatch it to remember the very specifics, but I remember Abner Mares trying to outbox Leo at first. After about 3 or 4 rounds, he said, you know what, I have to drag this guy into a dogfight, and that didn't work. And that just showed me that he just doesn't have the physical skills to get past Leo Santa Cruz's natural advantages. And it's not to say that Abner Mares is a bad fighter, because he's a hell of a fighter. But I just think the style matchup is wrong for him, and it showed the first fight, and I don't see the fight playing out any differently the second time. I think Leo beats him again 9-3, 8-4. I mean, it might even be, depending on what we get out of Abner Mares, we might get a late knockout by Leo Santa Cruz if he feels confident enough to let his hands go late.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
I would have, honestly, at this stage, I would have liked to get Abner Mares. What we could have got, I'm still interested in because we didn't get to see it. And it's a time where both fighters are faded enough just so it's exciting. You know what I mean? Like when they're both like high level defense, they both have faded enough so they can just punch each other's face off. Not that I always want to see a brawl because I love physical fights, but I would really like Abner Mares and Donaire. I would have really liked that fight.
I agree.
That fight, you know what I mean? Because Donaire can steal crap.
He can.
And Abner Mares is going to bring this fight. I would have liked that. I mean, it's time for Leo. If you want to give me a Leo Santa Cruz fight, give me Leo Santa Cruz versus Gary Russell.
I agree.
I mean? Give me that. That is a fight that makes sense. That there's two guys, both are champions, both are trying to prove a point for supremacy. Give me that fight.
I agree. And if we were going to have another rematch, as funny as this is, because I remember Nonito Donaire, speaking of him, he's fighting soon. He's actually fighting Carl Frampton. And I couldn't remember off the top of my head. And I feel like they got the matchup wrong. Give us Leo and Frampton 3, and give us Donaire and Abner. And that would have been a perfect card. That would have been, that is off the top of the head.
I would have loved to see that.
I would have loved to see it. Yeah, I would have loved to. And you know what? And we're going to come to an end here for this episode soon. The last topic I wanted to touch on, and I wanted to touch on it before, I forgot about it, but the card we just discussed right now made me think of it again, and I want to know what you think. Take away all the very specific lawyer-like contract talk. Throw that out the window. The one thing that I've always wondered when it came to, especially modern-day boxing, why don't we have pay-per-views that are cheaper than $60? Don't answer that yet. Take that card that we just said, Leo Santa Cruz, and Carl Frampton 3, and on the undercard you have Nonito Donaire and Abner Mares. Just random, the first number that comes into your head. How much are you willing to pay for that card?
Me?
Yeah, just a number.
The first time I went to pay, I'll pay a good $29.95 for that all day.
That's what I mean. My number was $20. Why don't we have like little $20, $30? I remember as a kid.
It don't have to. I get your point. That's why I was with you. Like, I have to be like this $59.99 stuff.
Yeah.
You can just make small cards that people are willing to pay for, and I'll pay that. I'll pay
100%. I would 100% pay for that. You give me 2 solid cards. You don't have to stack the whole thing like a UFC card where every 7 fights that are title. Give me 2 solid ones and show me a prospect as the 3rd fight. I'll give you $20 or $30. Hell, depending, I would even give you $40. But if we're being honest, there's really only, off the top of my head, and I might be missing, but there's really one guy that I think right now has earned the right for a $60 pay-per-view, or really $70 now with HD, and that's Canelo. Am I wrong? Is there anyone else that I'm missing off the top of my head? Because Pacquiao's past it. We're not paying $70 for a Manny Pacquiao pay-per-view.
I'm literally running through my mind like, who would I pay $50 for besides Canelo Alvarez? I'm running through my mind. Maybe there's only one other fight that I'll pay $59.99 for, and that's Wilder versus Anthony Joshua.
Well, see,
I'm not
no.
paying that for anything else.
Look. But the specific thing that you said there was that's the only fight you would pay for. There are certain matchups I would pay $60, $70 for. What I was asking, and it only adds to my point, so I'm not trying to act like you said nothing wrong. There's only one fighter that consistently I will pay $60 for, and that's Canelo, because he's generally
like fighter. I couldn't think of a fighter. I had to think of an actual match. I couldn't think of one guy that said, "Well, I'll pay my $60 for him."
Exactly.
I can't think of nobody else that can guard that would get that money from me.
Exactly. Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, I'll pay $80 for that shit at this point.
You put a nice card together.
Yeah.
Look, somebody's going to sleep.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
They don't even have to pay for judges. To tell the judges to stay home.
Yeah, somebody's going to get it out of here.
Yeah, no, for sure. But that was one of the things that bothered me, because I feel like that can catapult certain fighters, and that would ease the negotiation tables. Because that would show fighters what you're really worth. If you can't even sell a $20 pay-per-view at a good rate, what makes you think you deserve X amount of money against X fighter when he did this amount with $60 pay-per-views or $40? There should be tiers. And the reason why I say that is because that's how every other sport works. To know your worth, like say me and you are NFL free agents. Let's say we're linebackers. You get your contract 4 years, $60 million, $48 million guaranteed. I'm like, shit, well, I want 4 years and $52 million guaranteed because I had 15 more tackles on average than him a year. I've had more interceptions. You can point to stuff. You understand what I'm saying? Like in other sports, you can point to things that are tangible that earn you money at the negotiation table. We don't necessarily have that with boxing, and I think that would be a good step towards that.
Only thing boxers have are their resumes. And right now, there's not a lot of resumes. Canelo probably is one of the most decorated fighters because if you look at him, he's fought everybody from Moses, Floyd, to Laura. That's the only they have is they resume to say, hey, I have this resume, I deserve to be A-side to make this money. And only a guy like Canelo Alvarez has that resume that he can stack up against, like, hey, you know what I mean?
Right. I agree, and I hope we do find a model that way. I know ESPN has been talking about pay-per-view fights, and I know PBC is eventually, I don't understand all the TV contracts, but from what I've heard from people that, I do trust and people that know just more about the language when it comes to contracts, is that they want to dwindle down to like one network and then keep Showtime as the what do you call, like the the premium channel, like the premium channel, and then they're gonna have one that's a network like NBC or Fox. That's, I guess, the long-term goal, and I think doing something like that where you have your big top-of-the-line fights on Showtime, and then obviously the bigger pay-per-views, the $60 pay-per-views on Showtime, but then you can also offer with this other network $10, $15, $20 pay-per-views. I think those would perform well and would generate more money for the fighters. That's my opinion. I don't know if it would work. Like I said, I don't understand the logistics. I don't understand the ratings-wise. Could it really work? That's just my very, I guess, like, non-knowledgeable logic on everything. But it makes sense to me, and I don't know if it really would, but I think that would only help the sport, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, a lot of times when I agree so much with you, I try to step on your points with my own. So I'm just going to leave it at I agree with that. I think that should be a thing.
For sure. No, for sure. So we're going to end this one. Generally, our episodes are going to be anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, and they're going to have a little bit more structure to them. But we just want, like I said earlier, we just wanted to get back in the swing of everything. Want to get our voice.
We had to give y'all something, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So our goal is to get at least one out per week. Granted, if there's a downtime in boxing where there's 2 or 3 weeks without a fight and there's not much to talk about, we'll do our best to put one or so in between that. But there might be a dry spell every now and then. But that's going to be calculated. That we don't want to just get on here and just talk randomness. What we will do though is during those downtimes as well is come up with different segments. We spoke about things in the past, and I'm putting us both on the spot here because we both didn't follow through with it. Where we're rescoring controversial fights. That's something I definitely want to partake in moving forward. Where we kind of talk, and those will be more quick hitting episodes. Those will be 15 minutes. 10, 20. They won't be as elongated because these fights happen. There's not much to digest. Just kind of talking about it. But we want to give you guys more material. Our goal is just to continue to give you consistent material, and it starts with this episode here. It's going to be releasing January 25th, 2018. That's the last I wanted to say. Dennis, did you want to get anything off before we go?
Hey man, look forward. I think this shit gonna be very exciting. Everybody's starting to fight each other. We're just going to give y'all more heat. We're going to keep it real. Whether you like us, whether you love us, or you hate us, we're going to give you what we give you. That's going to be real.
For sure. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe. Share this with a friend. Whether they like boxing or not, just make them watch it. We could use every view we can get. All right, y'all. Peace.
All right, peace.